Now,
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Vince Coglianese.
Good afternoon to you. It is 4:06 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up from the Washington Times, Cheryl Chumley will join us this hour. We'll talk about religion in America. Republicans still have it. Democrats, not so much. Cheryl will tell us the latest data and what it means for us. And then joining us in the next hour, Tommy Pigott is here from the RNC. We'll get into everything going on in the world of politics today, including Joe Biden's visit to Michigan today to stand on the picket line with these union guys, with the auto workers. And it's interesting how this all went down. Remember, Biden, the White House, they had no interest in actually going out to support the auto workers or to be anywhere near this. In fact, that they were trying to swat away some questions on the subject at the White House. They made the ludicrous claim that they're the greatest defenders of American workers ever. This as all of these workers. I don't care who you are, but certainly these auto workers, the reason they need a raise right now, one of the biggest reason they need a raise is Joe Biden. I love the union leadership there is pretending like that's not the case, but it's definitely the case. Why are people so much poorer now than they were before Joe Biden took office? It's how much out of control spending and then printing that he and the Federal Reserve have done. That's why. Not to mention Joe Biden's long career of supporting the exporting of American jobs, getting rid of American manufacturing. Biden's been front and center. He's been a yes vote on all of those initiatives. So Biden today, pretending that he's a man of the people, he's a man of the working man. And he flies out to Michigan. He gingerly descends from the steps of Air Force One, stumbles as he comes down the back steps to get out of the plane. They put him in a 40-car motorcade, or whatever the number of vehicles is. Not exactly climate change friendly. They drive him off to the picket line, and he is there for exactly 12 minutes. 12 minutes. And the only reason he went at all, remember, they weren't going to go. The only reason he went at all is because Donald Trump is going to meet with the auto workers tomorrow night in Michigan. Trump is going to meet with former and current UAW members and give a primetime address tomorrow night at the same time as the Republican debate set to air on Fox Business tomorrow. So Trump had this is smart for Trump because obviously he saw the benefit of skipping the last debate and doing his own counter programming. He's going to do it again because why wouldn't he? Look at the scoreboard. What happened in the wake of that debate? He only grew in popularity. And now this is his way of saying, I'm focused on what's important here. I want to fight for the workers here. I want to make sure that they have long-lasting jobs. And Trump's version of this, which is correct, has been to say, Biden is trying to force all these auto companies. He's forcing all of these auto companies, these Democrats are, to get rid of the internal combustion engine, to get rid of what these people have spent their lives building, and instead force everybody into electric vehicles. They're the future, really? Because the present with electric vehicles isn't going so well. And they want to compel everybody to join in. And the end result is that we're going to have to import more and more and more stuff from China in order to satisfy the need that is being created artificially by the government with respect to these battery-powered cars. It's a betrayal of American workers. It's not standing up for them. So Trump thinks that as a condition of the negotiation, that the union workers should demand, that the union leadership should demand to knock off all this electric vehicle crap, this compulsory electric vehicle crap that the government's forcing down their throats. So Trump's set to speak. And so as soon as it became public that that was the case, the White House realized that they were being outmaneuvered. And so Biden gets sent to go to the picket line. And the media is very exercised about this today. It's historic. It's historic. He's joining union workers on the picket line. I don't know what's so amazing about this. Honestly, I really don't. I don't know what's so amazing about it. It is pretty funny, though, that the White House, earlier this week, Corinne was refusing to take a position on whether or not the White House supports the union's demands here. The auto workers union, the UAW, is demanding a 40% raise for all the workers. 40%, that would be pretty nice, wouldn't it? 40% raise would be huge. And a 4-day work week. They want a 4-day work week and a 40% raise. Now, if I went in with that, and I don't want my boss, I shouldn't take cards off the table here, but if I went in with 40% raise and a 4-day work week to see my boss, I may be over asking in terms of what's possible. But that's a hell of an opening ask, isn't it? And they've been sticking with it. You know, you've seen Chrysler and their parent company, they came along and they offered something like a 20% raise. That would satisfy the inflation. That's what Joe Biden has caused. Everyone's lost 20% of their spending power under Joe Biden. So if you get a 20% raise, all you're doing is catching up to inflation if you're an auto worker. Because of the guy who spoke to them for 12 minutes today. In fact, he was only there for 12 minutes on the picket line. He spoke for 87 seconds. 87 seconds is all the time that Joe Biden could provide to the auto workers who are fighting for better treatment. Here's Joe today in a portion of this. I don't have to cut it up that much. It's 87 seconds.
Marched a lot of UAW picket lines when I was a senator since 1973, but I tell you what, first time I've ever done it as a president. Folks, look.
It's the first time I've ever been on a picket line as president. He says he's marched a lot of picket lines since he became a senator in 1973. My guess is that that's false. Without doing any research on the subject, given Joe Biden's propensity for lying, that may very well be false. He says he marched a lot of picket lines. Maybe he drove past one once.
One thing is real simple, and to be very brief. The fact of the matter is that you guys, the UAW, you saved the automobile industry back in 2008 and before. Made a lot of sacrifices. Gave up a lot. And the companies were in trouble. But now they're doing incredibly well.
Well, if I remember correctly, the auto bailout included the American people saving the auto industry. Maybe you want to spread the credit a little bit here. But he says, UAW, you saved the auto industry.
And guess what? You should be doing incredibly well, too. Stick with it, because you deserve the significant raise you need and other benefits.
Let's get it!
Let's get back what we lost, okay? Yeah. We say them, it's about time them to step up for us. Thank you. Now, there's a guy I know you don't know here, but I brought him along anyway.
All right, so he's mumbling here. He's handing off the bullhorn to Sean Fain. So that was most of his comments. He did have a small other remarks. Biden here, 26 seconds of Biden. Not much here from him today. He was handed the bullhorn one more time.
Heard me say it many times. Wall Street didn't build the country. The middle class built the country. And unions built the middle class. That's a fact. So let's keep going. You deserve what you've earned, and you've earned a hell of a lot more than you're getting paid now. Thank you very much.
Now, it appeared today that apparently Biden was asked at one point today if the UAW members deserve a 40% raise. That's the demand. So it's not. So Biden sort of generically says that you deserve a big raise. You deserve a big raise. He was asked, do they deserve a 40% raise? And he responded, according to the Associated Press, he said, yes, they deserve a 40% raise. So remember, the White House tried to establish some distance to what Biden would sign on to. Is he really endorsing a 40% pay hike here? And now he's come out and said, yes. Yeah, I said 40. Yeah, totally. 40% raise. What would that do to the cost of the vehicles? Don't worry about that. What's the likeliness that you'll be able to afford that F-150 you've been saving up for? He's saying, yeah, 40% raise. I'm all on board. And so how does, the White House is going to have to explain this, or just refer you to some other agency. But here he is endorsing it. So Trump is going to go out tomorrow night, and he's going to spend more than 87 seconds with the union guys. He'll be out there for a lot longer and talking about a whole host of things, and he'll probably be more understandable than Joe Biden was today. The Daily Mail headline on today's events, Biden joins the picket line for 12 minutes. President tells UAW strikers that they deserve more pay as he stands alongside workers demanding a 4-day week and 40% raise. 40% raise. And the White House is going to pretend like they stand on the side of the working man here. I've got another story for you today out of the White House. Just in the last hour or so, CNN has a new report on what's happening inside of the White House. Headline, Commander Biden, that's the dog, Commander Biden bites another Secret Service agent, the 11th known. This was just published less than an hour ago. President Joe Biden's younger dog, Commander, bit another U.S. Secret Service agent at the White House Monday evening, CNN has learned. It's the 11th known biting incident involving the 2-year-old German Shepherd. Quote, yesterday around 8 p.m., a Secret Service uniformed division police officer came in contact with a first family pet and was bitten. The officer was treated by medical personnel on Complex, according to the U.S. Secret Service Chief of Communications, Anthony Guglielmi, telling CNN in a statement. The injured officer spoke with Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle on Tuesday and is doing okay, they said. Commander has been involved now in at least 11 biting incidents at the White House and in Delaware, according to CNN reporting and U.S. Secret Service email correspondence, including a November 2022 incident where an officer was hospitalized after the dog clamped down on their arms and thighs. White House officials said in July the Bidens were working through new training and leashing protocols for the family pet following the incidents. The Office of the First Lady did not immediately respond to CNN's request for comment Tuesday, on whether that training had taken place or if any further action would be sought. Another of Biden's dogs, Major, was involved in biting incidents at the White House. The German Shepherd later moved out of the White House, and Commander arrived at the White House in 2021. They said Judicial Watch. They credit Judicial Watch here, and that team found out that there have been at least 10 incidents of bites from the Biden family dogs involving the Secret Service. In one incident in October, First Lady Dr. Jill Biden couldn't regain control of the dog as it charged a member of the Secret Service. Quote, I believe it's only a matter of time before an agent or officer is attacked or bit, a staff member warned in an email. You know, have you ever had a dog that was a biter? Have you ever had a dog that mouthed at people or bit at them? Usually that happens when they're a puppy. They play with their mouth. You have to train them. You've got to teach your dog not to bite. You've got to teach. And I realize that, some dogs, some breeds are more likely to do this than others. But by and large, you can train this out of them. You can, if you pay attention to your dog and actually meet its needs, you can train them to behave. And the Bidens have no interest in that. This isn't one dog. This happened with both of their German Shepherds. Both Major and now Commander are biting the Secret Service. That is the product of Jill Biden and the family that she's leading. They're not training these dogs. They're not taking care of them. If it was one dog, you could chalk it up to, well, maybe it's just that dog and it's his nature. No, it's every dog they own is biting people. What does that tell you? I have a dog. This is one of the ironies of this story. I didn't, and it's funny too, because maybe I just did it subconsciously. I could actually tell you what the naming pattern is here, but I won't bore you with all the details. But I named my dog Major. My dog is going on 2 years old, we believe. He's a rescue. We're not quite sure of his age. But when we got him, he was a mouther. He wouldn't bite. He wouldn't break skin or anything, but he put his mouth kind of around your wrist or around an ankle as a way to play. We trained it out of him. He doesn't do that anymore. People show up at the house, no fear that they're going to be mouthed or bitten, which would be worse. So I can train Major. How come you can't? How come they've got a massive staff? I just have me walking around in my backyard. That's it. That's all I've got. And they can't train these dogs. They're just biting the Secret Service over and over. The guys who are supposed to keep the president safe are not safe themselves when they're around him because the dog might bite them. What are they supposed to do? Imagine being this, it's just nuts. Anyway, one more thing. Now, CNN, have you noticed the trend line lately? They're reporting on all this uncomfortable news about Biden. Biden's so old. Voters don't like him. Voters don't want him to be in office anymore. 2/3 of Democrats would like somebody else. The dogs are biting everybody. They're trying to show this guy the exit. And we may yet see that happen. It's 421.
Live and local.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Let me get line 5 here. Sam calling in from Riverdale, Maryland now. Sam, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hi, Vince. I totally enjoy your show.
Thank you, sir. What's on your mind?
Well, Vince, I used to own a guard dog company in Washington, D.C. I dealt with guard dogs for 15 years, from 1980 to 1996. Dealt with a lot of bad dogs. I ran an ad that said in the paper, aggressive dogs wanted. So that's all I really ever saw. What's going on has nothing to do with the dogs that are going into the White House. Those dogs are pack animals. They're looking for an alpha member. If there's no alpha member in their pack, what happens is they become alpha. The Bidens, there's not an alpha member in the family. These dogs come in there, and all they can feel is there is no leader, just like this country has. And those dogs must take that alpha position.
Yeah.
And when an officer comes in, that dog is the alpha dog, and he's going to try to fend off the next alpha dog, which would be that Secret Service agent.
So there's no strong hand. There's no strong hand that's guiding this dog. I've noticed in the case of my dog, like I said, my dog was mouthing at people. He has a special respect for my voice in my house.
There you go.
And
there has to be an alpha.
And that's
and
not happening.
Showing that you're the alpha. And then he doesn't have the problem at all. He's
Yeah.
not a problem dog. He was looking for the leadership. This man, this family, they can't lead. They are following. And we all know who's leading.
Sam, thank you. Excellent call, man, with a lot of experience with dogs like this. You got to show him who's boss. Joe Biden, not exactly doing that. He's having trouble with stairs these days. It's 429.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Good afternoon to you. 4:34 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up, Tommy Pigott will be with us at 5:30 with the RNC. We'll talk to him about everything going on this election season. It's a busy one already. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. I just checked in with our in-house economist, DJ Antoni, and he confirmed for me the numbers I've been citing here, which are that 20%, right now, those auto workers who are asking for a 40% raise, half of the number that they're asking for is Joe Biden's fault. We've had inflation, so much inflation since Joe Biden took office. Everything is 20% more expensive, at least, as much as 22% more expensive in many cases on average. So for guys to ask for, a 20% raise, that would just be to keep pace with inflation. That's the world we're living in. And Joe Biden has the gall to stand up there today to pretend like he's on their side. He's the reason they're poorer today. He's the reason they need so much more money. Well, just like the rest of us. Again, you can join us today at 888-630-9625. But joining us now is our friend Cheryl Chumley. She's an opinion editor and the host of the Bold and Blunt podcast for the Washington Times. She's also the author of the book Lockdown, The Socialist Plan to Take Away Your Freedom. Cheryl Chumley, great to have you with us today. Thank you.
Hi, Vince. It's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Always so nice to talk. And what I like talking about with you are some of these big cultural issues and what's happening in the country, because you're really good at taking the 30,000-foot view here. And this week you are writing about the issue of religion in the country and how different Republicans and Democrats are on that question. Tell us what you've seen in the data.
Well, just anecdotally speaking, right, we all feel intuitively as if Republicans draw more church-going, faith-based people to the party than Democrats do. And now we have the numbers for it. Gallup polling just found that in 2023, the number of Democrats who say they are religious stands at 37%. And that's a huge drop from 1999 when 60% of Democrats said they were religious. So we're finding this big disparity between the parties because Republicans, according to Gallup as well, haven't changed their views that much over the years since 1999 to today. Pretty much a large percentage of Republicans claim they are religious.
And what do you think animates that? Why is it that that fewer and fewer Democrats are religious at all, whereas Republicans seem to be holding steady?
Well, I think it's the overall trend of America to turn secular, right? Fewer Americans are going to church. We see polls where younger and younger Americans are embracing the idea of nuns, no religious affiliation. And it comes basically from a desire to live without boundaries, right? And if you go back to, say, the 1960s, where that sort of live as you wish type of mentality really took front and center in America politics and culture, you can see out of that things like the Supreme Court Roe v. Wade case and abortion at will and so forth. And these are sort of ideals that the Democrat Party has embraced a lot more than Republicans. So it's only natural that it seems they would draw more non-believers to their party.
Yeah. You know, I also I tend to believe that fatherlessness is a big precursor to godlessness in the country. And, you know, I'm as of today, it's about a quarter of all children in the United States live in a single-parent household. And I'm deeply worried about that trend line because it just keeps becoming more and more the norm. It's headed towards half of kids being in single-parent households. Do you think that those things have a relationship?
That's funny you asked, because I just had a conversation about this week with a very smart guy who thinks the same, and I agree. I agree with him. I agree with you. I think, you know, degrading the idea of fatherhood and pretending as if fathers don't matter, that two women can raise a child as well as a traditional family unit, that who needs men anymore, and men with increasing frequency abandoning their child-rearing roles and leaving these kids vulnerable to gangs, to the public school system, to all kinds of moral depravities that if you had that strong leader in the father in the home wouldn't really be a threat.
Yes.
I think that definitely brings us down a path of secularism and growing distaste for moral constraints and so forth, and it's a big cycle.
Well, also, I'm convinced that having a healthy father figure around teaches you what a good father looks like. And so if you're asking people to believe in God as a good father, what is their frame of reference? How would they even know what that's supposed to be if they don't have a good father figure to reference?
Yeah, and let's just explore that for a second, the impact to girls, right? Girls without a father in a home do not know how a man is supposed to treat them when they grow older, right? So say they grow old enough to marry. They don't know what to look for because they don't have that father figure to teach them. And even before they're of marrying age, it opens the door to all sorts of negative influences from young males who want to take advantage of the fact that these girls aren't taught how they're supposed to be treated. And so then if you carry that out to logical extension, right, these girls engage in behaviors that aren't positive for them, end up in some instances pregnant, which leads them to desire abortions, which, oh, wow, the abortion rate in this country is still skyrocketing, or is still pretty substantial, and it's still fairly easy to get abortions, which again leads into that cycle
Yes.
of societal cultural destruction once again.
How much does the Democrats they act as a party, especially their party leadership, as all good derives from government? How much does religion get in the way of that? Because that's not the way our founders saw it.
Oh, no, not at all, right? To the second part, founders did not see it that way. How much does it get in the way of what Democrats want to do as a political party? You only need to look, how many years ago was it? Just a few years ago in their platform, they tried to boot out God, and we had that big media coverage of everybody booing at the Democrat convention.
I think
everybody
that was
booing
was
God.
that the 2012 convention? I think that they took God out of the party platform.
I mean, what says Democrat Party more than that, right? So, the reason they want to remove God is because God is a stumbling block. It's a wall to their personal will. You can't believe in God and live your life as you wish and
Yes.
engage in all types of immoral behaviors if you believe in God, if you believe in a higher accountability.
Yeah, in fact, I'm quoting here. This is what they did. In 2008, the Democratic platform said this, quote, "We need a government that stands up for the hopes, values, and interests of working people and gives everyone willing to work hard the chance to make the most out of their God-given potential." In 2012, they removed the phrase God-given from their platform, which, of course, led to kind of a moment where everyone was like, what the heck is going on? And now you and I remember this in 2012. But, man, it's crazy that you would even get to that point because, you know, one of the defining features in America is our reverence for our Creator. It's like kind of the whole point that this is our founding documents declare outright that we were endowed by our Creator with these rights.
Well, I would say that is the singular important war in America right now. The fight to retain, preserve, and keep intact the idea of God-given individual liberties. Because if you look at all these various battles we're having in politics and culture right now, you can trace them all back to the battle over God-given individual liberties. Look at the COVID crackdowns, right? The entire, 3 years of lockdowns. If we had a population that truly believed that rights came from a creator, the government's response to that coronavirus would never have dared to tread into some of the seizures of individual liberties that it did, because they would have known the people wouldn't have put up with it.
Right.
But we turned a corner on that, and that's the big war in America right now.
And there's a perversion. Yeah, there's a perversion around the term rights, what that really means. Rights are the things that can't be taken away from you. They're not the things that are given to you. And the way the left acts is it's as if you are given rights by the government.
And a perfect example of that playing out is that crazy New Mexico governor who decided she was going to strip the Second Amendment right to carry, which is to say a God-given right to protect self and family,
yes,
from law-abiding gun owners in her state. And the backlash was so great, thankfully, that she had to pull back on it. But that's a classic textbook example of the loss of God-given liberties, where it would lead.
Do you find it curious that Democrats still put up the ruse, though, that some Democrat leaders, they still put up the ruse that they are somehow operating from a religious perspective? I mean, Joe Biden goes through the motions of going to church every week, and they always have the cameras out there to take pictures of him. But it strikes me that a man who's advancing as much baby death as he is not exactly adhering to the tenets of the church he's walking into.
You're absolutely right. But honestly, it doesn't really surprise me, because I look at the Democratic Party as full of deceptions and lies anyhow, because basically they're not a Democrat Party any longer. They are more like a Marxist or communist or, maybe soft socialist party. And so everything they do, everything that they bring forward in terms of an agenda is a deception. So why wouldn't the idea of being godly and moral while simultaneously pushing for unfettered access to abortions be any different?
Church attendance seems like an important thing to do these days. One of there have been a lot of social scientists, sociologists who've taken a look at that we've become more and more distant from one another, more and more tied up with our phones, and less interested in civic organizations and especially churches. And the more separated we become, the more reliant it appears we become on our government to serve the purpose that our civic organizations once did. Is that right, Cheryl?
I think so, and I think you just kind of hit the nail on the head of why it's not, by happenstance, right, that people are less engaged with each other. I think it's by strategic design of the globalists and the Democrats and the leftists. If you look again at the coronavirus lockdowns, it all ended up separating us and making us afraid to be around each other. And that worked toward the idea that the government could exploit fear so as to justify more separation of society, because a society that's afraid to step outside of its home is certainly not going to be filled with people who go to rally or protest, right? No
question. Have you seen, on a related question, have you seen this thing going around about men who think about the Roman Empire? Have you seen this question at all, Cheryl?
No.
So there's a viral trend going around of women, girlfriends and wives, asking their boyfriends and husbands, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? And they're shocked by the answer, which is very frequently that men are constantly saying some version of, every week or a couple times a week or a couple times a month. And they're like, and the women are always like stunned. Like, why are you thinking about the Roman Empire? Like, why are you thinking about it at all? Is the question that typically comes back from the women. And I saw a video this week, one of them, where an older gentleman with a big beard, he was asked by his wife, do you think about the Roman Empire? And he said, yeah, all the time. And she said, why? And he says, because we're going through it right now. And he said, and we're constantly being served distractions, whether it's, in celebrity culture, on the phones or the movies or anything. And it's equivalent to the bread and circuses that the Roman emperors would give to the people to distract them while they looted them. And it was a great answer. The guy was literally shirtless, just sitting on his porch saying this to his wife. And I thought, man, ain't that the truth though, Cheryl? Just the things. Have you noticed how frequently our government's constantly pushing weed on everybody? Like, hey, weed is available now. They're like, okay, that's great, but we have all these other problems. Why are you giving us weed? And I think the answer is so we don't think too much about who's screwing us.
Not just weed, but all these prescription medicines. If you go to college campuses or you have children at college campuses these days, ask them how so easy it is to go to the medical office on campus and say that you can't concentrate, and then next thing you know, you walk out with a prescription for Adderall or some sort of mind-altering behavior drug that we don't know exactly what it does for the long term. But if you're not on weed in this country, you're taking some sort of prescription pill, and you have to wonder, where's that taking society? Certainly not down the path of critical thinking.
For sure. Lastly, Cheryl, as we have this conversation on these big topics, I can't help but notice that one of the other pieces here is the amount of narcissism that seems to be spreading everywhere, that people are constantly told that they need to think about themselves first and foremost, whatever their peculiar interests are, and that they're all normal, and drag queen story hour, on and on and on. But I think society is at its best when people begin to think outside of themselves. Isn't that sort of the point of religion, that you have a realization that caring for others is much more important than constantly being obsessed with yourself?
Yeah, there's so many ways to address that, but let's just say this: the founding of our nation depended upon the idea of moral, virtuous people being charitable in their outreach to take care of those less fortunate, because that's what kept government limited, right? If you have people taking care of people, you don't need government creating programs and taking tax dollars to take care of people.
No question. Yeah, my grandmother, I always tell this story. She had 9 children. My dad's one of them. And I asked her once, I said, are you worried that Social Security won't be there for you? And she said, no, I'm not. I have 9 children. Why would I be worried?
There you go.
And I was like, that's a good point, Grandma. I completely understand. Thank you very much. Cheryl Chumley, always so nice to talk to you over at the Washington Times.
Thank you, Vince.
All right, it is 4:50 now.
The latest news and information sent straight to your inbox with the WMAL newsletter.
Register today at WMAL.com/email.
Oh, man, the music selection just perfect here because I found the video of this guy, of the guy who was asked by his wife, does he think about the Roman Empire? How often? And he's shirtless with a big ZZ Top beard sitting on his front porch. Here's the exchange between his wife and him. It's great.
Do you ever think about the Roman Empire?
All the time.
Why? What are you thinking about it?
Well, because we're in those times right now. Everybody's preoccupied with sports, movies, work,
What was it you said about bread?
Well, all right. The common people, Roman Empire said that everybody was equal. Everybody had a chance. But it wasn't. The rich got richer and the poor got poorer. And they worried constantly about people rioting. Because they knew that the common man, the common people, could take over at any time. So they would bring them into the Colosseums, and they would give them free grain. They would give them bread. They would give them wine, whatever they needed to fill their bellies and block their minds from what they were angry about. They would watch plays. They would watch fights with the gladiators, sometimes for months on end. And that's where we're at right now. And I think about it all the time because so many people are preoccupied with their favorite football team, their favorite actor, actress, singer, and they just don't even think about what's being taken away from them. As long as their bellies are full and they're happy with what's going on, They just let it continue.
A little porch wisdom from the ZZ Top Beard. Isn't that great? It's great. It's insightful. Bread and circuses. Let them fight amongst themselves. Keep them distracted. Meanwhile, we'll rob them blind. There's a lot of that going on. Do you ever think about the Roman Empire? I love how she's like, I have no idea who this man is. I had no idea he thought about the Roman Empire that much. Coming up, we're going to talk to Tommy Pigott from the RNC. We'll get a look at what's going on in politics. Also, business in one city not going so well because the crime is so out of control. Democrats are in charge. Another strike that the media is not talking very much about.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.